Today on Pots and Trowels, I'm going to show you how to pot rooted cuttings, and that's brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden, Darlac and Mr Fothergills. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, step inside, Jill, come into the greenhouse, bring everybody with you. There's not much room for a lot of people because this is just a small lean-to greenhouse where I overwinter a few tender plants that need frost protection, and it is literally just frost protection. It's a heated bench that is only a few watts, and that just keeps the frost off with the bubble polythene. And it's where this time of the year I'm potting rooted cuttings, I'm sowing seeds, I'm taking cuttings. It's the nerve centre really of the garden, and you can do an awful lot in a small space like this. So what I'm going to do today is to pot some rooted cuttings, and these are some pelargonium cuttings that I took last September time from my old established stock plants. It's good every 2 or 3 years to take some fresh cuttings. It sort of rejuvenates the stock instead of them getting too old and too woody. And these are a regal pelargonium, and I've put 3 cuttings into a 3.5 inch pot in just a multi-purpose compost, and then they've been stood on this sand bench, just a very simple do-it-yourself sand bench here that I've put in with a soil warming cable in it, and I keep them only just moist. The secret is not to keep this type of cutting too wet, otherwise they rot off. Other types of cuttings, having said that, I root in my little covered propagator here. As you can see, there's still a few shrub cuttings in there, pittosporums and a few hollies and box and that type of thing. That's a bit more humid. So for example, there's some shrub cuttings here. This is a viburnum tinus. In fact, this little one, even a cutting, is starting to flower. What we should do, of course, is take that flower off because we want all the energy to go into producing shoots, which it's starting to do here. These were taken in October, exactly the same method. And if I just knock them out, I can tell they've rooted because they've started to grow. And you can see there we've got a really strong root system. So all of these plants are really easy to grow with just basic rooting conditions. But back to the pelargoniums, it's now time to move these on. We can't leave these 3 plants in this pot. So it's a variety called Fir Tree Fiesta, really lovely sort of azalea flowered regal pelargonium. Let's take off any old leaves, knock them out gently. And we can see there we've got a nice root ball already formed. And what I'm going to do is very gently just tease them apart. We're going to cause some disturbance, but we want the disturbance to be minimal. That one actually looks like that's all going to be one plant. It doesn't look like it's a third cutting. No, it's a shoot that's come out from the base, but oh no, it's going to split. There we go. So we've got 3 really strong, healthy plants taken from cuttings last autumn. So they're going to be potted up. So to pot them up, we need some pots. The secret is don't go from a small cutting to a huge pot. They don't want that volume of compost. It's always good to start small and move up gradually. So small pots, so I'm going to go into a 3.5 inch pot. We had 3 in there, now it's going to be 1, and then in a month or two's time I'll move into a 5 inch pot. Compost, you need some a good well-drained multi-purpose compost, and what I'm going to do is add into it some of this control release fertilizer here, and this releases the nutrients over about 4, 5 or 6 months, so it's going to keep them fed right the way through. So on the packet it will give you the application rates. I sort of know what to put in because I've been doing it a lot, but read it and put the right amount of fertilizer in, because overfeeding is probably worse than underfeeding because it will scorch the roots. So I'm just mixing that little bit of slow release or controlled release fertilizer in, and then we're ready to pot. So I'll do this small one first to make it easier for you to see. 3.5 inch pot, and the aim is always, doesn't really make any difference, but from an aesthetic point of view I think it's better, you want the plant to be in the middle of the pot. So I'm going to put a little bit of compost in the base, put the cutting in there, and then we can just trickle some of the compost around. Just give it a little shake as well so that the compost works its way around the roots. And then if we leave it too loose it will rock around, but we don't want to compact it, so we're just using our fingers just to lightly firm it, but only lightly firm it, and then give it a tap. And when we finish, we want the compost to be about 1/2 inch below the rim of the pot, so that when we water it, the water won't run off. It's got somewhere to sit so it can seep down. And of course then we need to put our label in. So while we're here, we might as well just pop these other two in there, and then any damaged leaves or broken leaves we can take off and get rid of. Centre of the pot. Oops, a little bit of compost first. Centre of the pot. You can often pot them just a fraction deeper as well to keep them nice and squat. So that's that one there. And the third one, a little bit of compost, hold it in the centre, give it a wiggle as we do it, and then just that light firm with our fingers and a tap. Now these have naturally started to bush out, but if you'd got some cuttings, and I'm just looking to see if I've got one, which I haven't, but if you'd got one that's got sort of like this one here, this is a variegated form. If you've got one that's just a single shoot, what you could do is just pinch out the growing tip there like that, and that will encourage some side shoots to come from these leaf joints. So have a look at the plant. If it's already bushy, that's fine. Otherwise, pinch out the growing tips so that you get a nice bushy plant. And that is it. So what I will do with these now is just give them a drop of water just to settle the compost and to moisten the roots. They're fine in here. They only need it just frost free. We don't want them too warm because they'll get too tall and weak and leggy. We want them to grow quite hard to get that bushy growth. And about 2 months time, we'll have a really, really good root system in there. And at that point, I will then repot it into a 5-inch pot, and then it can stand out through the summer and it will flower and flower and flower. So it's a really good time to be potting your cuttings now, start of the growing season, to get them going. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and remember, all the videos we've done over the past 2.5 years can be found on YouTube. Just search for us, Pots and Trowels. Next week I'm going to be sowing vegetables in plug trays and containers to get plants for the garden later on in the season, so we'll see you then.